We'll call the regular monthly meeting of the Board of Commissioners on Tuesday, April 14th at 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom of Park District and remotely. And following with CDC guidelines pertaining to social distancing, and we're limiting to less than 10 people in the room, and we're also making this available online through the Fargo Park District website. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes of previous meetings.
I have a couple of corrections.
Okay, go ahead.
The meeting on March 28th, we should probably put that Jason was in attendance. And then, I don't know if it matters, but it says we attended by phone or MS Teams.
Combination of attendance in person. Any other corrections? Any motions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
As amended?
As amended?
As amended, correct.
How about a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Minutes are passed as amended. Item number 2, approval of March bills. Do we have any questions or issues on the March bills or motions?
Move to approve as presented.
We have a motion? We have a second.
Second.
Is that Stacy or Vicky?
It is, this Stacy.
Stacy, okay. All right, or Commissioner Griggs, excuse me. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Jeff, pull the board, please.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs,
Aye.
Commissioner Papacek,
Aye.
Commissioner Rosted.
Yes. The March bills are paid. Item number 3, approve order of the agenda. Is there any additions or changes, Mr. Leaker?
No changes,
No
President
changes.
Rosted.
Okay. So you remote participants need to participate some. Do we have a motion on the agenda?
Move to approve as presented.
We have a motion,
Mr.
second?
President.
Second.
This is Vicky.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Perfect. We don't have any recognition of audience, just anything coming in over the chat wire that we need to be aware of? Carol?
No, at this point, we don't have anybody who's chatted.
Okay, perfect. Item number 5, Director's Report. Mr. Weaver.
All right, Commissioners, I apologize for sending this out. These couple reports I did email out to you. It did take a while to compile everything. And if you would like, I can just read them verbatim if that's what you'd like, and feel free to answer any questions as they come up. Is that how we want to proceed?
Are a lot of these going to be in item 7?
This is Vicky. I can't see them because I have my, obviously they're on my email, which is on the iPad, which is where I am with Microsoft Teams. So I couldn't even tell you what's on all of them because I haven't looked at all of them. So I'd say anything that doesn't show up on the agenda below, I don't know if you want to touch on it or if the other commissioners who have access to them want to comment.
Yeah, basically what, we asked all the directors to do is just give us a quick update of what's going on in their areas. And included in that would be the business office, how we're operating, park operations, programming events, and then we also have a golf course update. We had a golf meeting this morning and just kind of reviewing the operating procedures that we're looking to use when the courses do finally open. As Commissioner ROSTAD said, we do have some other items that'll be in line item number 7, which is the COVID update. But right now, this would just be kind of a department update, if you'd like me to proceed with that.
Yeah.
And it'll be easy enough. I mean, I'll just read it off, and if you have any questions. And all the directors are available here to answer any questions too. So just kind of an update for our business office. All business office staff are currently working remotely on a part-time basis. All their tasks cannot be completed remotely, so they are alternating when they come into the office. So we just limit the number of staff in the office at the same time. And that just means, they're doing a lot of work at home and then they alternate coming into the office if they have some paperwork that needs to be done there. In operations, some of the protocols there is identifying when we need additional seasonal staff to start. Under that one, do we need them or can we reduce the number we bring on? And B, under that line item would be consider using later start dates if possible. So, we're kind of hoping that as the COVID event progresses, maybe things will start getting better and we'll be able to bring on more staff. But right now, we're just looking at trying to bring on what we need at this time. 2, maintain the physical distancing as best as possible. The recommendation from the CDC is 6 feet, and we're just needing to find ways to adhere to this the best we can. Good thing about a lot of our park operations is, once we get outside, if the snow would ever stop, people can work independently of each other. It's just a matter of getting people going in the morning and, breaks, making sure people take breaks on their own. Number 3 under operations, limit gatherings of employees to groups of 10 people or less. This means staggered starting times so we can adhere to the potential for larger groups to be starting together. Staggered lunch and other breaks to accommodate physical spacing, as well as no more than 10 people. Take lunch and other breaks at the job site. No need to travel back to the shops. For times when larger groups will be arriving at the same time, split these groups up and have them start at different areas of the building. We're also looking at different facilities. We might base some staff out of the Coliseum and just try to split some of our maintenance, park maintenance staff up. Item number 4, daily cleaning of all common spaces with sanitation routine on all major touch points. That goes without saying. Number 5, proper hygiene is expected from all staff. Signage will be posted in every restroom to state proper hand washing. Number 6, daily cleaning and sanitation of equipment should be done for all the equipment that was used. And this is wiping down steering wheels, doors, etc. Number 7, only one person per piece of equipment or vehicle. Assign people to the same equipment or vehicle each day as much as possible, just so we're not having different people operate tractors, loaders, bobcats type of things. 8, limit the amount of touch points by propping doors open when possible. Most of these are internal doors. Number 9, signs will be posted at the main entrance points to say the following. Fargo Park District employees only. A number can be added for people to call if they may choose to. So this is if we have deliveries or something, people can call in and arrange for somebody to open the doors. 9B, maintain physical distancing, keeping 6 feet between you and another person. Number 10, stay home and not feeling well. We want to stress this, if somebody's not feeling well, we don't need you to come into work. We want to make sure all people are responsible to ensure that we keep each other healthy and our environment safe. And I think with all the discussion going on nowadays, I think people really do take heart to that now. And if they do have a sore throat, a cough, a fever, I think we've made it poignant enough that they should be staying home. Under programming and events, just want to give an update on our new Block 9 manager, Anna Rustness Peterson. She's our new Broadway Square manager and she'll be on staff. There was some delay to this. It was supposed to start April 1st and she'll be moving up here from Texas. So we'll be looking to get her on staff as soon as possible and there will be a quarantine period for her. And then moving on later in kind of some of these reports, we have an update on cleaning of facilities. So we'll touch on that a little bit later. Golf courses, as I mentioned earlier, Carolyn and her staff did meet this morning along with operations and marketing. And we have come up with a set of guidelines and procedures, including physical distancing of how we're going to operate our courses. So I'll just walk through these right now. These are a following set of guidelines for operational practices at the Fargo Park District golf courses. These guidelines have been created with knowledge and information we have currently gathered from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the local health officials. We will continue to monitor the impact of COVID-19 as it relates to our golf course operations, which would lead to alternating or ceasing operations at any time. So starting off, pre-arrival, just want to make sure everybody stays home if they are sick. Number 2, all golfers must reserve a tee time online in advance of playing. No walk-ins will be accepted. 2A, to reserve a tee time online, please visit fargogolf.net. 2B, to reserve a tee time by phone, call the Course Pro Shop. 2C, tee times will be accepted up to 3 days in advance. 2D, tee time intervals will be increased from 10 minutes to 15 minutes. Allowing more spacing between groups. 2E, only groups of 4 or less with the exception of any league activities. On number 3, in an effort to maintain social distancing and minimize contact points for customers and staff, we'll be accepting payment on the day of play before your arrival by calling the golf shop or by payment online and reserving your tee time. 3A, payment will also be accepted at the golf shop. However, only credit cards and debit cards will be accepted. Customers will swipe their own card and no signatures will be required. 3B, no cash payments will be accepted. 3C, frequent customers may place a credit card on file to be used for future transactions. 3D, a debit or credit card may be stored safely and securely by our card processor. WorldPay on your 4UP account in accordance with PCI compliance for future transactions. So that's just storing your number. 3E, limited entry into the golf shop will be enforced by allowing a maximum of 2 customers at a time while adhering to physical distancing guidelines. The remainder of the clubhouse will be closed to all customers, including restrooms. Just want folks to please plan accordingly. And all of these will get out to our customers. Number 4, golf retail items will be available, but with limited access. Staff will assist with any retail purchases. Number 5, customers are encouraged to bring their own hand sanitizers and disinfectant. A water bottle is also advised to remain hydrated during your golfing experience. No outside alcohol is allowed, and we've never allowed that. Arrival at the course. Number 1, please check in at the golf shop at least 5 minutes before your tee time. However, please do not arrive more than 15 minutes before your tee time to not to exceed gathering limits established by local and state authorities. At times, you may be instructed to check in with a starter who will be equipped with a tablet to check you in on the first tee. Reminder, a maximum of 2 customers allowed in the golf shop at one time. Alleviate customers and golfers from gathering in the parking lots before and after. 2, season pass holders and guests must keep a minimum of 6 feet between them and any person at all times. We look forward to seeing you. However, no handshakes or high fives at this current time. 3, scorecards and pencils will be distributed to golfers upon request in the golf shop only. We will not have scorecards or pencils available on the course. 4, all common areas and equipment will be frequently disinfected throughout the day to include workstation, credit card machines, pens, and other touchable surfaces at the check-in counter. New golf course rules. We're going to currently open up with walking only. We want to kind of start up very conservatively and then broaden as we learn how to deal with the situation. So number 1, walking only. No rentals at this current time, including golf carts, pole carts, and club rentals. So you just have to play with your own clubs and walk. Number 2, practice facilities will remain closed, including the putting green and driving range. 3, ball washers, bunker rigs, drinking fountain, coolers, and benches will all be removed from the course. 4, trash receptacles will be available at selected areas around the course. 5, flag sticks will be sanitized daily and must not be touched or removed. Cups have been adjusted for safe ball retrieval. The United States Golf Association, USGA, has a temporary measure in place to accept scores played under these conditions for handicap purposes, using the most likely score guidelines, even though the player has not holed out. 6, Please smooth out bunkers with your foot or golf club after play. Our staff will drag the bunkers at the beginning of each day. 7, access to clubhouse will be limited and in some cases closed. This includes access to restrooms, food, and beverage. Decisions will be made in partnership with restaurant owners. Please sanitize your hands before and after using these restrooms. Restrooms will be cleaned and sanitized regularly. And then 7A, that's just listing where portable restrooms will be. 7A, Rose Creek. Temporary porta potties will be available on both the front 9 between number 3 and number 6 and on the back 9, number 14. Limited restrooms will be available to the clubhouse, to the customers in the clubhouse. B, Prairiewood Golf Course. Clubhouse closed, portable bathroom available outside golf shop and on course between number 4 and number 8. Hell's Angle, clubhouse open, but door locked. Staff will enter players, 1 player at a time, bathrooms open, food and beverages out of vending machines. D, Edgewood. Clubhouse closed, bathrooms at Chalet open for use. Pro shop open, limited players allowed at any time. Osgood, clubhouse will be open and bathrooms available. Bathrooms on the back of the maintenance building will be available. These facilities will be cleaned once a day. Number 8, golfers should refrain from retrieving stray golf balls and sharing of golf clubs. Number 9, please practice patience and respect for golf course staff and fellow golfers. Number 10, intentional or deliberate failure to abide by these rules will be subject to expulsion from the grounds without a refund. So that kind of gives you some of our departmental updates along with our golf course procedures. So if you have any questions, we'll get the appropriate director to help answer.
This is Stacy. I have a question at the beginning, and I assume we'll just break it into different sections instead of all the questions all at once, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. Are all staff complying with the 6-foot distance at all times?
I mean, that's what we're stressing, Commissioner, is 6-foot spacing. I mean, can we guarantee they're all staying within that? And it's pretty tough to guarantee, but we do keep an eye on them. Our supervisors do stress that. We try to keep that 6-foot spacing.
Do you want me to go through all my questions, or do you want me to wait?
Sure. Or
Go ahead.
go ahead.
My next questions are all regarding the golf course, so.
Okay.
But under 2E, only groups of 4 or less with the exception of any league activity. Why is there an exception for league activity?
Right now, the league that we are talking about having available has 2 times only, and that's how it's been set up in the past. And so the expectation is that these are golfers who understand the game and would follow the rules. And they will then, if they do not follow the rules and cannot abide, we will cancel the league.
And I assume then that is that the 5 sims at Osgood?
Right.
So we'll allow 5 sims? At Osgood.
Only
Yeah.
for the league.
I think their men's night is 5 sims.
Okay, on the golf course rules, number 1, can you bring your own push cart?
Yes, you can bring your own push cart. We just will not rent any.
Okay. Under number 7, regarding restrooms, do we have public restrooms open throughout the rest of our park facilities?
I don't believe so.
We do not at this point. We'll, most of it is due to weather dependent. It's just still too cold to get most of our buildings going. So we talked about this morning at our golf staff. Our intention would be, once temperatures are warranted, where we can get our on-course restrooms going, we will definitely re-look at this and see if we're still in this pandemic, and then take action appropriately depending on weather conditions and then how long this all lasts.
Okay. Is it generally practiced throughout the state and the region that public restrooms are open?
It's a little bit of a mixed bag, Commissioner. Some places are opening their restrooms. A lot of them are keeping them closed and using porta potties.
Okay. But they are providing a public restroom?
Yes, porta potty at minimum.
Okay. I think that's all my questions.
Thank you.
I want to piggyback on the two of the things that Stacy brought up. This is Vicki. So you have the 4 or less groups. Are we requiring or expecting that to be a group of 4 from the same household? Or are we telling a foursome that they have to maintain 6-foot distance?
We are not going to be able to police people online booking their foursome. So it would be that you would have to have your 6-foot distance. And that again is why we're not renting carts, because people then are having to walk.
So our expectation is that the 6-foot distance will be maintained even if you're in league or a different group.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and then on the other piece about the restrooms, that they're closed at other places, I'm assuming we still have porta potties at a variety of parks?
Yes, we'll be, Dave, maybe jump in here, but I believe we'll still be putting some porta potties in our parks, correct?
We definitely will do that once the weather again warms up a little bit and we see that increased use. You know, one thing we've talked about outside of golf staff is, you know, do we open up our public restrooms at our park facilities? And we haven't really come to that point yet. I would think that we would, just to provide what we have in the past and maybe just post the times that they're cleaned, but that's still a topic of discussion.
So do we have any porta potties out there right now?
Not at this time. They're scheduled to start being placed out next week.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, typically we wait until, you know, about the last week of April, which we're close to, so we're still a little bit early, even outside of this pandemic.
I have a few comments and questions. Carolyn, nice job on this list, you and your staff. I mean, there's a lot going on here, and I think you did a real nice job. One thing is in the pro shop, and I see that we're having 2 people in there. I think it's going to be critical for us to self-enforce this. And it starts with us making sure the people behind the desk aren't standing shoulder to shoulder as we're helping people. And I think we just need to know who's in charge and that we're taking this seriously. You know, to me, it's a benefit that we're able to do this because we have a neighboring state where they're not golfing and we might be under the microscope a little bit. So I just want to make sure when we decide to open that we know people are potentially watching us and we're doing the best we can to keep everyone safe. And along that line too, I think once we get on the golf course, I think it makes sense to dedicate staff religiously to have a player's assistant or marshal out on the course, making sure everyone's keeping their distance. Because all it takes is one slow group just to bog everything down, and then you've really defeated your purpose of spreading your tee times out from 8 minutes to 10 or even 12 or 15. So I think we just need to commit to that and make sure that we're self-policing the course and making sure that it's moving along like it should.
Yeah, we have talked about that, and the intent is to be as on top of it as we can be.
Well, and I don't think even as we can be, I think we have to commit to it. I think we're risking, if we're not going to enforce this, that, you know, people are going to be watching and then question why we're really open.
Sorry guys, I couldn't get online.
My next question, and I'm sure you guys are getting it too, and people are seeing it 60 degrees this weekend and what's going on. So what are tentative open dates at this point?
It would not be this week. At the earliest, it would be the following weekend. And again, it depends on how much snow and how things dry out. So it would not be this weekend at all.
But you said next weekend or next week?
Next weekend is the closest we've talked about, because again, we need to pull covers and we need to make sure we have supplies in order to have all of the necessary equipment to open properly.
Stacy, did you have a
Carol?
question? Go ahead.
Have we considered doing a dry run of, having a group of people, maybe it's, I don't know, 10, 12 people that you put back to back and see how it actually works and where they might run into kinks along the way, kind of test drive this before we open?
I think the pros at this point are working off of their past year's experience, because if we don't have carts, you don't have that somebody's faster than somebody else. People tend to walk at a similar pace, even if they're golfing, maybe some better than the other, but you're not going to hit your ball into a group if you know everybody's walking. So that's what they're working off of. Yes, we can definitely do a test run. At this point, we have not planned to do that.
I mean, I'm even thinking of, even if it's a couple people, I mean, it could even be our pros, they go and, they play around and say, oh wait, here's a spot where I had to touch I'm just going spitballing here. I had to touch something, or here's a spot where we could have done something different, or oh, we forgot this bench, or whatever it might be. Just kind of trying to stay one step ahead of it.
And then definitely we will take a look at that, and we're always double checking. It took us 3 weeks to put this list together. We've been checking and double checking there too. So yes, anything like that we can do, we will do.
And I would like to tell you thank you as well. This is extremely thorough and obviously didn't get tossed together at the last minute, and there was a lot of thought put into this. It's rather impressive. Hopefully it's something that works really well for us and other courses can follow suit.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just like to add that, I mean, this is one thing that Carolyn and the superintendents and the pros and Dave Beats and his crew is, they stressed we wanted to start out very conservative on this and kind of walk before we run, and they'll work on, the process of opening the other portions of the game up as we get more comfortable with it and find out how things are working, whether that's, potentially the driving range in the future or the practice areas in the future. And depending how, the COVID event pans out, we just want to take things slow. So that was a big part of them putting these lists together.
And I want to go out there
maybe
too.
tell me now, Carolyn, but maybe send it out. I mean, I'd like to have an idea when we're opening. People are asking me. I can surely send them to you. And I'm assuming we're going to stagger. Not all courses are going to open at the same time. When you talk about covers, the only greens that have covers is Osgood. And I guess I wonder if, because we're going to walk before we run, if we consider opening more on a weekday than opening it on a weekend when we know we're going to be slammed.
And we talked about that at today's meeting. And so next Monday at 2 o'clock, we are having a planning meeting to see where everybody's at, superintendents and pros, so that we can talk about that staggering. We agree we don't want to open on a Friday and Saturday and get slammed.
And I can talk a little bit to that too, Rusty. All the points are well placed, and I want to assure the commissioners that the golf group that we work with all are working diligently, and I know they are, but we too do not want to be the ones that cast a bad shadow over this. We think we're very fortunate to be able to let this go. We had talked today that we might meet on Friday to determine what things look like. Through more discussion, we opted for the Monday meeting that Carolyn's talking about. And that was very much the discussion today, is we would definitely stagger the opening. We want to try and stay away from the Friday and Saturday, because we know typically that those are the days that people are going to be anxious to get out there anyway. So I have a feeling that, come Monday, we're going to have a real good idea that, which dates and which courses will open.
Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate it.
Yep.
I assume that will also put signage up to remind people of, why we're asking them to walk and not ride, and why we're asking them to stay 6 feet apart. This list is comprehensive and impressive. And, but I think we have to, communicate with the people that are going to be our users and why we have these rules, and that it is a privilege that we can do them.
Exactly. We've been working with marketing and they have been instructed to start putting this information out to say when we open, this is the expectations. And we are in the process of preparing the signs that would be available before you even get out of the parking lot. Because again, we can't sit and visit with everybody. They have been instructed to come 5 minutes before so they can basically get out on their course and get around. So we've talked extensively about that as well in order to get the message to them.
Super, thank you.
Yep, thank you. As soon as you guys load, just let us know. And then, like I said, I talked to several golfers and they're all chomping at the bit, but they all realize too that we need to be safe and be smart about this.
Any other questions related to kind of the department updates or golf?
I'd just like to add too that you guys did a very nice job with this. I anticipate that'll be up on the web and then.
Yes, that's supposed to be going out too.
Great. Thank you.
All right, moving on in the director's report. Just got a couple commissioner topics or questions that we just want to cover and put up for discussion. The first one was a question on the direction of our police officer, Josh Marvig. And I just included a kind of a paragraph on here. I believe Officer Marvig has been a tremendous asset to the Park District. He has offered the law enforcement presence in our parks that we did not previously have. He has also been an excellent conduit in working with the Fargo Police Department. And just with Josh working with them and securing additional officers for special events and community outreach. His attention to detail when it comes to overall safety for the Park District, staff and our customers is invaluable. He's brought up a lot of great points and topics, and he catches things that I think we might overlook in the past. And then kind of I just truly believe that, this venture into law enforcement, I know it was, Joe Bettle's idea, and I think it's been a great idea for the Park District. It helps us in our parks where maybe we didn't have that direct connection to the police department at a time we need it. I mean, now Officer Marvig has a good handle and a good conduit to the police department, and we can get things taken care of and addressed very quickly. So I just want to open that up for any comments. I think all the directors would support that Officer Marvig's been a good thing for the Fargo Park District, and he's helped out a lot. So I'll just open that up if anybody has any questions.
This is Rusty. I'm the one that mentioned it. And I don't know if I want to talk a lot about it tonight, but I think this is a topic that we can talk more in the budget meeting next week. Because as we see, we'll look at more budget items, and there's going to be a lot on the table that we need to consider moving forward. And this might be one of several topics that we talk about.
Any other questions, comments? Second item, direction of the sports complex, considering the economic situation. And right now, I think, and Brian will touch a little bit on it with his foundation report, the design process, we had about 4 months for the design phase of this project and then 4 months of construction documents. And that's currently on temporary hold just till we get through to more normal economic times. I know, Sanford's mind is elsewhere and they have bigger fish to fry in this. So right now it's just on temporary hold, and once things calm down and get back to normal, we'll see about getting everything moving again. So would you have any questions on that?
I do. Do you know, and if not, can you get this? What is our current expenditure for design fees to date?
Right now, we're not responsible for any of the design fees. That is all.
We're not by the agreement, but eventually we will be, and that's part of Sanford's take. So, but do you have an idea what's been spent to date on the design fees?
No, I can find that out though.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to know. Thank you.
Anybody else? Next item, discussion regarding golf pro duties and business activities as it relates to employee independent contractor. in light of what took place over in Moorhead with their golf operations. So I'll just turn that one over to Carolyn.
Diane and I spoke with that and Anthony Anderson at Nillis last week. And Anthony is working on this for us. He is in process of researching, and Thad feels that we should have something for the May board meeting.
So that was correct.
I don't know the background to this, and I don't know if it's legit or not, but I think we need to look into it. And if you guys don't know, it's really just the conflict between an employee and an independent contractor. And Moorhead now has made changes. So I think it's just a good time for us to review it and make sure we're doing our due diligence.
So yes, we're moving forward on that and should have more at meetings later this month.
Do we have any other similar scenarios in the district? Or like,
I mean, we have some commissioned employees at Fort
that's,
Plus,
yeah,
but again, running the pro shop, not exactly the same.
okay. I didn't think so, but I want to ask the question.
And then next item, just give an update on our discussions with Cass County and the RDJ facility. Tyson, myself, Commissioner ROSTAD did meet with a Cass County Commissioner, Mike Montplaisir, and Robert Wilson here a couple of weeks ago, just kind of preliminary discussion on if the Cass County would be interested in the purchase of that building. I think as we proceed with the design of the sports complex, we'd like to get all of our staff together and get all of them in one place, so we feel that we don't have a need for the RDJ building. The discussion at that point was Cass County was going to go back to their commission, and I believe they have a meeting next Monday, and they'll discuss possible offer price for the building. And then what we would do is bring that to our next commission meeting for discussion.
I guess I have a question for Thad, and this is more of a legal question, is can we just negotiate with one party? If we're actively going to sell a building, does it need to be out there in an RFP, or, what do we legally, what can we do?
Yeah, I might have a good handle on that, Commissioner Popacek. We've been talking with the city of Fargo about property transaction between two government entities. And since we don't have an ordinance that pertains to that, we fall back on the city of Fargo's ordinance. And right now, they would have to amend their ordinance, which would allow the transaction between two government entities for sale of property. So they're in the process of working on amending that ordinance. And then after that is completed, we would be able to fall back onto the city's ordinance and be able to complete the transaction with another government entity, if we so choose. We don't have to.
So the RDJ is appraised at 900 and some thousand, is that correct?
Correct.
And we're looking at
What was that? I didn't hear that.
ish figure.
Commissioner Dawson just said that the RDJ building appraised out at 900 or 950, I believe.
It's 950,000. 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And the city's carrying it for $1 million, their assessment.
And, I'm just questioning questioning whether we need to put it out for, public sale. And two, if it's, especially for the fact that it looks like the purchase price may be significantly lower than the appraised value.
Yeah, and I think, that would be a decision made by, the full park board, depending on what their offer price would be, or if the commissioners decided to counter offer at a different price.
Yeah, and I'll just, from attending the meeting, you know, it got to a point where, you know, you guys need to come up with a number. They seemed interested. It's not something they want to program right away, but they can see potential down the road. And as we just kind of talked through it and everything, we finally said, you guys come up with a number so that we can react to it and then we can go forward, because we're not committing at any extent to that number, but you know, we can take a look at it, and from there we can decide, let's deal with the county, or let's see if we can't sell it ourselves. I mean, so, you know, until we know what they're thinking, there really isn't, you know, there isn't a direction that we even can consider. At least that's kind of how I feel about it.
So where did the one spreadsheet come from? Did they ask to know what we had into the building? There's an Excel spreadsheet showing the purchase cost and then, you know, improvements that we put into the building. Did they ask for that and we provided it, or is that just an internal document for us?
I think that was some initial discussions when we were just approaching the possibility of whether the county would be interested, and they probably asked how much money we had into the building. And this is, you know, that's probably 2.5, 3 years ago, because I know Jim Larson was the one that put that spreadsheet together and basically said, here's what the purchase price was, and here's what everything we've done for improvements or maintenance wise on that sheet.
I guess I'm hopeful that that's not being used as a baseline, because I don't think any property's ever been bought or sold using that method. You're basically discounting all your appreciation over the last, whatever, 20, 25 years. So I'm just hoping that doesn't come back as someone's basis for what an offer price is going to be.
And we did discuss that point in the meeting we had.
Okay, thank you. We'll wait to see what kind of an offer we get.
Thank you. Last item, just want to touch base on, as everybody knows, we've had, with some of our facilities closing down, we've had the opportunity to do some very thorough spring cleaning, I guess you would say, for our facilities. It just so happened it happened in the spring. And I don't, if all the commissioners would like me to read through these, or if you just like to look at them in your own free time, you can let me know what you'd like to do. I'd be more than happy to do whatever you'd like. But we basically, it's just a thorough cleaning of our facilities with our staff. You know, with Courts Plus Community Fitness being closed, they've had a tremendous amount of time to go top to bottom at Courts Plus. Similar thing in our operations and our programming and facilities department. So if you'd like me to read through, I can. If not, if you just want to look through them on your own time, that'd be good also.
I would say if you want to hit some highlights at the most, but other than that, we can read through them. I do have a question on staffing though, and I assume, I mean, we're committing to keeping our full-timers working. Once you get through these lists, and I'll just say maybe there's a few employees at Courts Plus, we're basically through the list and maybe we're not going to open for a month or two. I'm hoping that our employees are very flexible and it helps them diversifying us too, that if they've done everything they can do at Courts Plus and we need some help on our golf courses, that they're willing to do whatever it takes to stay gainfully employed and just reaching out and helping other departments.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Commissioner. And we've had those exact conversations, and I believe everybody's willing to do their part, whatever that means across departments. We've talked about having some of our full-time staff at Courts Plus work in our park operations. We've talked about having to help out the golf courses, whether that's in maintenance or inside the shop. So yeah, that conversation has been had, and we are looking at ways to keep everybody fully employed and our area staff, So I don't know, Carolyn, if you want to add anything to that?
It's exactly what Dave has said. We're in conversation right now with operations as well as the golf courses to determine how best to schedule those people, and you know how we can put this together in an organized fashion for everybody involved. Thank you.
And I guess just touching on some of the highlights, just in our operations, you know, we've gone top to bottom on our shop facilities. We've hit the Southwest Youth Hockey Arena, the sports arena. We still have the Metro Rec and the Coliseum to get to. And Courts Plus, as you look through that list, I think they did a very nice job of listing out what they've done. They've done everything from cleaning to painting, and so I think everybody's done a very good job. And these are a lot of things that we just never have time to get to, because as the snow melts, it's almost you're immediately out there for spring ball and golf and everything. So it's kind of blessing in disguise, but I think all of our facilities are gonna show very good after we get them opened up again. And I'll just leave it up to you.
Thank you for making this list. I appreciate it. I just want to thank the staff for being so flexible, because I'm guessing a lot of these things that they've done were never anything that they signed up for in the first place. And I would concur that, you know, there's a job for the staff. There's always going to be work for the staff. There's no reason for us to worry about who we're not going to have a job for, because there's plenty of work to be done.
That is correct.
I think it's also, you know, something that we can look at and feel good about, with everything being kind of desperate at the moment. So I think just having a list is sometimes nice to just see that there's a lot happening and it's all good.
All right, so that's all I have for the director's report, unless anybody has any questions.
I just want to add a comment too, that, you know, this is taking lemons and making lemonade, the opportunity that the pandemic has presented. So great work.
Okay. Yep, that concludes number 5.
All right. Let's move on to item 6. And I hope you're just as long, Brian. Foundation Director's Report.
I can be a little briefer. As Dave mentioned, planning and really all action with respect to the sports complex is on hold. Design work and right on down the line. At the same time, we're really not in a position that we can reach out to potential funders, donors to the complex. You know, people's worlds and lives have been turned upside down. So this isn't a time to sit down and ask for multi-million-dollar donations to a facility. So with that in mind, the Park District Foundation Board, you know, is kind of on hiatus right now. We're certainly communicating with board members about what's going on, but there's not much point in meeting, you know, kind of with the current climate the way it is. So the foundation board is a little bit on ice. With respect to Valley Senior Services, I'll give you just a little bit of an update on what's going on with us. We discontinued meals at our meal sites, group dining, on March 18th. And that was on the recommendation of the state epidemiologist and working with the North Dakota Department of Human Services. We're doing takeout meals at all of those sites. At some of those sites, that has resulted in a decrease in the number of meals we're doing, and in some sites, it's been a significant increase. It's just a little bit of a crapshoot that way. Meals on Wheels, we are still continuing. Delivery of those, we lost about 1/3 of our volunteers, but have had 130 new volunteers sign up to help deliver Meals on Wheels. There's been an increase of just over 10% in the number of people that need Meals on Wheels. So the demand for that is up, which kind of makes sense to me. When people are being told to shelter in place and are a little bit concerned about going out for groceries or whatever, it makes sense they would turn to a program like this. NDSU is still doing an incredible job getting our meals prepared and delivered to all the sites that we are distributing meals from. We're working with the North Dakota Department of Human Services on accessing some additional funds. There were 2 bills that passed Congress, and both of those included some additional funding for nutrition services for the elderly. So those dollars, I think, are going to be available effective April 1st. So we'll be tapping into that to help with the increased costs that we're experiencing as part of the program. You know, some of the changes that we've had to implement in terms of packaging and to make sure that our volunteers and that our staff are practicing good sanitation and sanitary procedures. So that's a bit about how things are going. It's challenging times for everybody. Certainly very much so when it comes to serving the vulnerable population that we're bringing meals to. But so far, we're continuing on.
Is there any one?
Brian,
Go ahead.
Yeah.
are we doing anything, are you guys doing anything to, I don't know, stay connected with our, what I probably call your regulars, people that would have come in for meals or would have come in just for the social part or playing cards or any of that thing, keeping in mind that I'm guessing a large percentage of them are not on social media? Just wondering if there's anything you guys are doing reaching out to stay connected to people who would have utilized our in-person services before.
So probably about 85 or 90% of the regulars that came to meal sites are still coming to the meal sites. They're picking up meals and they're taking them home with them. And like I mentioned, some of them transitioned over to getting Meals on Wheels. We are doing a lot of phone calling, you know, to touch base with people on Meals on Wheels, the regulars that we haven't seen at the meal sites. You know, so just finding out how they're doing, if they need any help with groceries or other types of things. You know, if there's things that we can help them with, we're finding out. You know, so yeah, we're making phone calls to especially people on Meals on Wheels that, you know, right now we're kind of social distancing when we deliver meals, so we're encouraging volunteers to leave the meal, you know, sometimes on a bench or a chair that the senior has put outside, and then to step back, make sure that the person is there, that they come and get the meal. You know, but there's not as much socialization involved with the way meals are being delivered now. So we're following up with phone contact.
Brian, do you feel that you have enough staff to adequately do what you need to do, given the work duties have kind of shifted?
Yeah, you know, for some of our staff, we're having trouble keeping them busy as many hours as they have been working. You know, when a meal site used to be open 6 or 8 hours a day, now it's open 2 or 3. So that's impacted some of our staff. We're transitioning a few people to helping with meal production out in West Fargo. As far as staffing for Meals on Wheels delivery, so far I'd say we're doing fine. You know, I don't know how long this is going to continue and what's going to happen with some of our new volunteers, and that might change what our needs are, but for now I'd say we're okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, let's move on. Number 7, COVID-19 update. There's 4 subcomponents to it. Dave, if you want to, maybe we could just take them one at a time and do the general update, maybe roll into the budget and then stop for questions, and then we can go from there maybe.
Yeah, I think
We already kind of covered some of the general.
a couple of the items, yeah, have been covered before, so I'll just kind of briefly read through like the staffing and full-time, part-time. You know, there will need to be some discussion on how we move forward with our playgrounds, and then of course we've got preliminary budget impacts, CARES Act, and then moving forward with our meetings. So just a quick update. Like I said, we've talked about a lot of these previously, but you know, we're currently keeping all of our full-time staff working. We have accommodated staff by allowing the ones to work from home if possible, partial working from home, operating some split shifts in our parks department. We'll also be utilizing some full-time staff for some departments, as Commissioner Popchek talked about in other departments. Example, Course Plus staff to maintenance, golf operations. Our supervisors are currently working on the numbers of part-time staff that may be needed if we're not fully open across the district, and how we'll bring these staff on to accomplish our tasks. You we still have tasks to accomplish and work to be done, so we're ready for when we get open full-time. Some of these positions may be able to be covered by full-time staff working across departments, as mentioned earlier. So I don't think we have probably any questions related to that since we've already covered it. So I'll just move into, there's been an ongoing discussion across, the North Dakota Park districts on what everybody is doing regarding playgrounds. And I just want to make sure too that, maybe this conversation, I know playgrounds is a big part of it, but we also have other amenities within our parks that can attract people too, whether that's basketball courts, ball fields, soccer fields, shelters, or picnic tables. So just kind of kicking it off with the discussion on our playgrounds. I know that's high on everybody's list. So as of this morning, I did give Bismarck, Minot, and West Fargo executive directors a call to see how their playgrounds are going. Are they still open? All three of those were still open. Grand Forks did close their playgrounds last week. And in talking with the staff up in Grand Forks, while they closed them, they didn't necessarily put any type of fencing or caution tape around all of them. They said they possibly might do some of the larger ones, but they didn't really give me an idea of which ones they were doing. But when I asked them how they're going to enforce it, they just said, well, basically it's just an announcement to say they're closed and they're requesting people stay off them. So there was no active enforcement taking place up in Grand Forks. Across the state, about half of the park districts have closed their playgrounds, and then the ones I mentioned are still open, with the addition of some of the smaller communities like Crosby and Hazen still have theirs open too. So in talking with President ROSTAD, he thought maybe if I could put together some pros and cons of leaving the playgrounds open versus closing them, it might help with the discussion between the commissioners of how we'd like to proceed. So I'll just kind of read those off. So basically leaving the playgrounds open with current signs and guidelines as recommended by CDC and NDRPA. The pros of that are we do have proper signage out there with the recommendations by CDC and NRPA. Promote self-responsibility, and I think this is a big item that Governor Burgum discusses when he does his press conferences. Is North Dakota smart, and people take it on the responsibility to monitor their kids, and if they're not comfortable with the situation, then you just don't go out and use the playgrounds. Another pro is police. With the mayoral directive last week, the Fargo police can still break up large groups, whether that's on a basketball court, ball field, or even kids playing on a playground. So they still have the ability to break up groups. And then another pro is same signage works for other park amenities. And that, as I mentioned before, that includes shelters, picnic tables, basketball courts, ball fields, skate parks. We're kind of leaving it up to the individual to decide to use proper distancing and proper CDC guidelines and put that onus back on the individual. Some of the cons with leaving the playgrounds open, people may not follow the suggestions. As with any case you put signs up, people don't always follow the rules and the directives. Large groups could gather, as I mentioned before, that could be playgrounds, that could be ball fields, that could be shelters. While I haven't had a lot of phone calls or emails, I did have one last week. I believe Kevin Bowe had one last week, kind of asking, criticism why the playgrounds are open. So this could be accused of not caring, criticism about not actually sanitizing the playgrounds. And I think while you leave them open, it's virtually impossible to, sanitize them after each use. I think we leave that onus back onto the individual. While they might not be able to use some sanitary wipes to wipe down the slide, they can go wipe down the chains or a bucket seat or an ADA compatible seat for their kids and utilize the swings. So that's kind of some of the pros and cons of leaving the playgrounds open. If we decided to close the playgrounds, some of the pros and cons would be pros. May seem like we're taking an extra precautionary step to stem social distancing and group gathering, so that's always good. Pros, police can still break up large groups with the playgrounds closed. They can scatter the kids. Some of the cons that we've just discussed internally with staff, and as I mentioned in Grand Forks, how do you close the playground? Is it just a statement? Do we actually go out there and try to wrap all of our playgrounds with snow fence or caution tape? How do we enforce the closure? Do we just say they're closed and don't enforce it? That's something that would have to be decided. And talking specifically with Dave Beats is we don't want our staff out there enforcing a closure. Some people have high emotions running. They want to get out and use the parks. I think we'd want to leave that up to the police department. And then, kind of an item, if we close our playgrounds, what other park amenities are we going to close after that? It kind of starts the ball rolling, and then do we close our shelters? Do we close our basketball courts? Do we close the baseball fields, soccer fields, et cetera? Where do you stop? And I think, in talking with Randy Bain, the executive director in Bismarck, is we want to keep these, and even Governor Bergen mentions that we want to keep recreational amenities open for the public, but we want the public to be smart about using them. And I just feel that if we do, close our playgrounds, then where do we stop? And then if we do decide to either wrap them with caution tape or snow fence, wind could, blow the caution tape down, or kids could definitely rip off the snow fence. So we deal with this when we are constructing playgrounds, and we try to wrap the playgrounds with snow fence just to keep them off until we get the wood chips in place, and then invariably it never lasts. So those are just some of the items, and I'll kind of turn it over to the commissioners. I got one more item here before I turn it over to the commissioners. So I did talk with North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund, Brennan Quintus, regarding our playgrounds, and just asked him if there's any liability issues. If somebody would claim that they might have contracted COVID-19 by using a playground. And he reassured me that, while they might file a lawsuit, the DERF would definitely defend the park district, and with recreational immunity, which means, any type of amenity or service that the park district provides at no cost to the public, it kind of gives you recreational immunity unless there's gross negligence. Say there's a pothole that we knew about, we didn't fill, and somebody hit it and broke their leg, that would be gross negligence. But typically, if we keep things in good shape, that there would be no liability for an insurance claim related to contracting it through a playground. So he reassured me there that there shouldn't be any issues with that. So kind of with that, I think, I've kind of stated my thoughts, and I kind of fall back on, if you listen to Governor Bergen every day, putting the responsibility back on the individual, on the families, and if people just don't feel comfortable using our amenities or playgrounds, then they do have that right to stay home. So I'll turn it over to any discussion with the commissioners.
Well, I want to take a quick stab at it first. So I'm thinking about this as you're going over all these items for me, and the one thing that's different in all this to me, though, is that this is the one thing that really just children use. Parents aren't out there on the playground with the children playing on the playground generally. Now, I have played with my kids on the playground before, and I know other people have. But for the most part, you sit off to the side, or you're away from the area, and kids are playing. My children can't play with their friends outside right now, because what we're being told is that they're not responsible enough to understand and respect the social distancing and truly understand the importance of the 6 feet barrier. So so what happens then? That somebody's standing there watching and then their kid gets too close to another kid, so they run. I mean, it just, you know, if you close one thing, you close the playground. Because that is the one place that, you know, the kids are going to play and they're going to be bumping into each other and playing with each other as we would naturally want children to normally be doing. But I also don't want it to be taxing on your staff, and it's not even realistic to believe that our staff could try to reinforce it. So the next question becomes, well, then why do you quote unquote close them if you're not going to barricade them and you're not going to enforce it? And the answer to that is because it's the right thing to do, and then it gives people of authority the opportunity to enforce it, so to speak. So if I'm walking by on the sidewalk and I see neighborhood kids having gathered playing on the playground together and they're, you know, playing up there, I can say, hey guys, I don't know if you knew this, but the playground's closed to the general public. You guys can't use it right now, unfortunately, sorry. And I would assume that those kids would be like, oh, okay, and off they would go. You know, it would give police officers the opportunity, or, you know, to think. Now, are people going to still potentially use them, and regardless of the fact that we've closed them? Possibly, probably. But I think within reason, you know, but that's like saying, are people going to go out and about if they're not going to get things that they absolutely need to, or to do, you know, jobs that they need to? I mean, it's periodically going to happen, but not to the extent that it would when you're sending a message that it's important. So the bottom line is that I agree with your position about Governor Burgum. I agree with his position that we need to, you know, self-police, and we can't do a shelter in place in the state because, you know, they jokingly say North Dakota practicing social distancing since 1886 or whatever, because there's more land than there is, you know, grouping people. You need, in smaller communities and stuff, need to get off the farm and do all these things that don't include interacting with other people. So they ask that people, and, you know, use common sense, but children can't make those decisions for themselves, and it's not realistic to believe that children are going to be always with parents, and then how do the parents handle keeping that distancing up there? I mean, they go in there, I mean, and pushing kids apart, or whatever. I mean, so I guess I'm very open to the idea of us saying that the playgrounds are closed, with the notion that it gives people the ability to remind people that that's what's going on. It gives people of actual authority the ability to, and I know that you said that, you know, police officers can still break up large groups, but so that's some of my thoughts.
I'll be brief and basically just say I echo what Joe just said. I think we need to be proactive. We need to close them. Playgrounds to me are apples and oranges to a basketball court or a tennis court or a ball field. I mean, just for the reasons that Joe said. And I'm not that concerned about enforcing it, but just sending the message they're closed. At least people are seeing that they're closed, and we don't have the staff to do it, and I think people realize that. My only other question is, and I thought West Fargo closed their playgrounds, or did I miss that?
I think that was just West Fargo School District.
Oh, it was a school district like Fargo School District, but the parks are open.
Correct.
On their website, on their Facebook page, that does direct the public, do not send your children to the playground.
That's West Fargo Park District or School District?
Park District, West Fargo Parks. It doesn't say our park playgrounds are closed, but they say do not send your children to the playgrounds.
Oh, I did talk to Barbara Drosser here probably 11 o'clock today, and I just asked her if their playgrounds were still open, and she assured me they were, so that's what I know.
So I would be on the same page as Joe and Rusty. The other piece to this, you know, Joe hit it very well by saying it's children. This is a children thing. Children can't necessarily make these decisions on their own. Along with that, you know, a lot of our children in our community don't have the ability, nor do their families, to clean something like a swing set or whatever they might be climbing on. You know, families with means can't get their hands on wipes, much less a family without means. And I don't expect, and I wouldn't want us to put caution tape or barricades or anything else up, but I think signage, educating and explaining and posting it on social media on our website, I think would be things that I would expect.
And I would echo everyone's opinions. I think that it's impossible to close it. I've seen some covered in police space, but, you know, people will rip it down, but I think that we need to let the public know that it's to enter at your own risk if you're going to enter, but we would prefer you didn't because it's impossible to keep it clean. It is not a safe place from this virus until we get control over it. And I would say we should put a date on it. Maybe effective today or whatever hour we decide, and until May 1st, at which time we'll revisit the situation and determine whether or not things are letting up in our community, things are better, we have a better way of making sure that it is safe for our kids and families to use, or we, you know, extend it beyond that, kind of like what's happening with everything else. But I really think that it's our job to keep our users as safe as possible.
Yeah, I'm the only one that hasn't spoken, and everything I've heard is I'm in the same boat. I think that it's the messaging, it's the, you know, making sure that the community understands that this is something that we think is important, and that if we send the message that our playgrounds are open, then that suggests that they're going to go over there and play. And when I think about playgrounds, and I think about kids and touching everything, and, you know, it's just that's different than maybe a shelter where there isn't that physical, you know, contact with all the devices that are at a playground. So I agree with everything that's been said. In terms of a deadline, you know, I think that one thing we could maybe think about is the next board meeting. So we could, you know, so if we said May 1st, for instance, then we'd have to call a special meeting, and we could do that too if we wanted, but better we just leave it open without a deadline, and then if we need to revisit it before May 1st, before the May board meeting, we can do that, or we can take it up again at the May meeting.
Yeah, I wonder if just closed until further notice and not put a date to it. I mean, this thing is so fluid, who knows how long it's going to last.
So I guess on that front, we need to look for a motion.
I moved to close our parks effective playground, excuse me, now very clearly the playgrounds, not parks, effective immediately or tomorrow morning. Effective tomorrow morning until further notice.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Jeff, full board?
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs,
Aye.
Commissioner Papacek,
Aye.
Commissioner ROSTAD.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. All right. Any other general discussion, or do we want to move on to the preliminary budget impact?
Commissioners, can I ask one question here regarding the playgrounds? I'm assuming, but would like clarification. Do you want each playground signed to read that they will be closed until further notice?
I think that's good, but I don't, and again, this is just my personal opinion, I don't want you to spend a lot of money on signage to accomplish that, but I think that it would be good to put up a positive sign, so to speak, that says that we're closed until further notice. Somebody, I think, was it Vicky or somebody said, and then some information about.
Yeah, we can probably move our current signs to the entrances of the parks and then order similar type choreoplast signs that we could put at the playgrounds. And it would be a limited number, 80 to 100 probably. Just might take a couple days, 4 or 5 days to get in, but we'll get those out.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to be, we're trying to be, safe and being diligent for these kids, but at the same time, like I said, this is my life, so it's very important that children understand that it's natural to play like that and want to play like that. So I don't think putting up caution tape or barricades is healthy at all, because it's sending, the doom and gloom message to kids that they're already getting enough of. We don't need to do any more of that. So just some sort of positive message that, in order to keep you healthy and, trying to follow these things that you've already got out there, we're temporarily closing the playground until further notice.
Thank you.
All right, ready to move on to the next item?
Yep.
Okay, and on the next two items, we had a couple of our staff put these together, so I'll just read the preliminary budget impact that Tyson Lund put together for us, and he's online if we have any questions after this. This is just kind of an update, kind of a scenario if these conditions would continue through the end of May. So just kind of some of the impacts. We are currently analyzing the budget impacts COVID-19 through the end of May. The main thing we're reviewing is lost revenue and what are some possible cost saving strategies to make up for this lost revenue. Bullet point number 2, estimate lost revenue through May is about 1.63 million. The following is a breakdown. Courts plus 500,000, Park District General Fund 340,000, golf 190,000, and state aid 600,000. Next bullet point, state aid is based on a sales tax, so it's difficult to analyze due to the lack of data. We know there will be a decrease in state aid, we just don't know the impact. I used a 20% reduction for what was collected in 2019, but could end up being more or less, give or take. Next bullet point, we are currently compiling possible cost saving strategies, which include salary savings, not filling the deputy director position and delaying or not hiring seasonal staff that were budgeted. Operational savings, what can be saved by reducing level of service in different areas or other potential options for saving and operating costs. Number 3, deferring the purchase of capitals until further years. 4, continuing education, possibly restricting travel and limiting continuing education has been previously budgeted. So those are kind of some of the items that Tyson had put together, and I'll just open that up for any discussion.
I think that's a good starting point of things that we need to address and discuss. I think it's gonna be quite shocking when we realize the impact that this thing's gonna have over the long haul. And we're gonna have to be very smart on where we spend our money or don't spend our money over the course of the next year plus.
I think it's a good overview, and just assuming we're just going to roll that into the budget discussion next week, correct?
Correct.
Yep, that's good. Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns? Tyson, anything you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I was just going to add that this is a discussion point for the budget meeting next week, so we will discuss it further then.
All right, thank you, Tyson. Number C, the CARES Act Emergency Fund Relief and Updates. Diane Jones helped put this together for us, so I'll just briefly read it. We have several employees in various departments that are currently working from home or working on an adjusted schedule. We've talked about this with our full-time, part-time staffing. We have slowed bringing on part-time seasonal staff. All supervisors have been asked to see what the minimum required staff would be and only bring in on what is needed. We are currently deploying any part-time staff who wish to continue to work throughout the Park District to work on special projects. We are looking at a potential temporary redeployment of full-time staff. We talked about that. Encouraging staff to continue to follow safety guidelines, hand washing, social distancing, etc. Another item in there, we are looking to get masks This isn't something we'd mandate, but just make available to our staff as we can acquire them. Then the last bullet point, a handful of employees are currently accessing benefits of the FFCRA. 4 of them have childcare issues, which is the 2/3 pay. And then 3 of them are quarantined from either travel or proximity to somebody that has tested positive. So, Diane, is there anything you'd like to add, or just open that up for questions?
I'll answer any questions the commissioners may have.
Agree that are quarantined, have you done any contact tracing to see if, or the back into the park district staff?
No, 2 of them were travel outside of the state. And then the last one was, I believe it was a relative.
It was contact with the relative of an individual who I believe tested positive. So our employee just, as a precaution, quarantined for 14 days.
It's kind of a 2 degrees of separation thing.
Okay.
A friend of a friend.
I was just trying to parallel that to the meat packing plant. You know, do we have somebody that's been in the maintenance shop? You know, okay. That's all I want. Thank you. Any other questions on the CARES Act? All right.
This isn't specific to the CARES Act, but I do have this question about, what's the situation, or what are we doing with our commission staff? The tennis pros are come to mind, since obviously they're not receiving that commission for things they would normally be doing.
Well, currently they do have a base pay and they are receiving that.
And what percentage of what they would normally have as an income would the base pay be?
Right now, what I know of would be about 2/3.
And is there any discussion about how we can help them make up some of that or accommodate that, or?
We've kind of worked on a case-by-case basis as far as current needs, and maybe revisiting this at the end when we find out how long this lasts and the total impact.
And they're still stocking their pro shops, and they're still gonna be selling, it just won't be.
Well, as far as the tennis and course
Oh,
classes.
sorry.
Tennis is
Sorry.
different.
Got it. Yeah.
So that, you know, there's no tennis lessons, there's none of what they would be doing on the side. And do we have full-time staff who are trainers that would be in the same boat? Courts Plus staff?
The only one I know of is Jamie, and again, she has a base.
And she's still doing videos, correct?
Oh yeah, she's actively working, but again, we don't have, our group X there, other than her, no full-time. And then as far as, the other personal trainers, they are not full-time. And so that would be a different issue as well.
Yep, and so have we had conversations with our tennis guys and our trainers?
Yes,
as how they're feeling about all this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And we have to have, there has to be other examples out there in the world. I mean, restaurants where somebody was once a server and working for quite a bit of tips that are now actually working at the restaurant still and churning out food to people that are picking it up and coming, yet they're not getting the tips they were getting before. They must be getting some sort of unemployment, so to speak, or, I mean, I don't know how you would file it or something, but that's something for Diane to work on with those people if for some reason there's something they can do for them, but.
I'm sorry, Joe, I'm sorry, Commissioner Deutsch, I missed the beginning of your question.
It started as kind of a statement and turned into a question, but I'm saying that the so to speak, the trainers at Courts Plus, let's say, who were working on getting paid by their contracted lessens. So similar to somebody getting paid on tips that was working at a restaurant, they're still working at those restaurants, but not getting those tips anymore because they're doing takeout food and whatever else. But there's gotta be some sort of compensation with the state or something to help those people. I'm going down.
Unemployment benefits are available to individuals who have seen a decrease in hours or who have been furloughed. We have not furloughed any individuals, but they do have access to unemployment benefits, and I believe that there is going to be an additional spike or an additional amount available to them due to this pandemic. I think it's the pandemic economic something. So they'll get additional weeks and additional dollars if it's COVID related.
Yeah, like $600 a paycheck or something.
I would assume too that you're doing flexible things like if somebody is in commission, lost their commission because they can't teach tennis, but they're at the courts painting or doing something else in that time, that we can think about how do we compensate them for the work that they're doing over and above the 2/3 that the base covers.
Yep.
So
Yeah, we'll definitely take all those into consideration, and as Carolyn said, we kind of handle those on an individual basis. Everything's a little bit different.
Thank you.
let's move on to item B, discussion of use of technology. So it looks like we got just one little road bump, a couple of iPad users or phone users that have to, we need to figure that piece out. But other than that, the meeting so far tonight's been gone swimmingly. Although I would like to ask our one guest, did we have any technical problems?
Yeah, I pressed on the button, not yet. A couple other guys at work trying to help me, and there was just no connection to the meeting.
Yeah, and I have several people who are connected, so I don't know if you have that link, or again, we'd have to go and look at what you were using.
What was that spam filter thing we set up for?
Yeah, right. That's why.
He said that.
No, I'm sorry, I can ask somebody there.
No, and that's
But
fine.
I clicked on where you had it on the agenda.
Okay.
And I clicked on there, and then it took me to this computer screen. That was, I don't know whose computer screen it was. I just couldn't get into it. And then I tried to download the Microsoft Team or whatever, when I did Moorhead City Council last night in Fargo too, and they, I believe it's YouTube, it just connects right to this, so.
Right, they have a different software system and a
Which is so
different
much
process.
easier,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but so much easier, this Microsoft Teams just didn't work for me.
Yeah, no, it's our first opportunity to work through this, so we knew there would be bugs.
Maybe when you have some time, we could do a test or something and just make sure we can establish.
Yeah, I can ask our IT.
Well, I know where you got it. If you got it off of the website and off of the list, then we know we have something to test. Yeah.
For the remote commissioners, the form reporter, Barry Amundsen's here, he had trouble getting connected, so. What other discussions do we need to have on the use of technology for future meetings?
Well, and I brought this up, and not necessarily to bring it to a motion or a mandate, but my take on this the whole time has been, there's been a guideline. It started at 50, it went to 25, it went to 10. But I still view it as being proactive, and even though it's 10, no one can dispute that 0 is better than 10. So this worked well tonight. We just had a call with my employer today of 300 people that no one was in a room, everyone was online. So I'm just hoping that we're going to move towards basically being everyone online until further notice.
And I think the only limitation in talking to Carolyn is the Microsoft the Teams live events has a limit of 10 active participants. So, once we whittle away the presenters and there needs to be a producer, which Carolyn is doing, that only leaves us with so many more participant channels. So.
Well, is there a reason can we look into Skype? Can we look into WebEx? Can we look into other types of services that are out there?
Yes, we can absolutely do that. Again, we are trying to work with what we currently have and not do any additional expenditures.
Yeah, oh, I understand. So I too would agree with Rusty that if at all possible, we should not have meetings, we should not have groups period. I refer to my household as a pod, and we're presently a pod of 4. And our pod of 4 does not interact with other pods or people from other pods or go to any extra things that even if we could gather in a group under 10, we are a group of 4 and we don't interact with any other groups or create a bigger group. And I would expect that of our staff and of anything we are inviting people to, that we are not creating any group type of situation, whether it's having lunch, even if we're at 10 different tables, or a break where we're at 10 different tables, or a meeting where we're at 10 different tables.
Any other discussion?
I think it did work a little better tonight. It would be nice if we were all on the same media platform and could have ease of access for our base of citizens, but I think everything is just too unknown about this, and I agree with Vicki. I'm actually in a pod of 2 at the moment, and I'm the only one who goes into public spaces because I'm protecting the other one. And we don't know what we're all bringing in, so maybe there's only the 5 of us in the room, but we have, by the time you add it all together, we've got 500 contacts, and you think nothing of it, but until we have a handle on this, because the state levels out and we know we're becoming safe, I think the fewer people in a room, the better.
Well, and I've used Zoom for several years to run, I'm a regional president right now, and so people from all different states, we come on in Zoom, and you just send out a link, and it's got a code numbers, I think there's 9 numbers on it or whatever. You punch that right in, and I'm on my iPad, and we had a department meeting today via Zoom, and everybody's on there in face, and you literally feel like you're all in the same room together because the connection is amazing. So that's a possibility, but at this point, I haven't felt comfortable enough with that platform that I'm coming in, because this is where I feel like I do my best work. But if we were to go to Zoom, I could support that.
Well, the Teams does the same thing. What you have to factor in is how you control the environment. And there's been some situations where Zoom bombing has occurred, where people have busted into meetings and done some not very nice things. And so, there are technologies that are out there, but we have to understand how we control the environment so we don't have some nefarious activities. And so there's got to be some controls in there to manage that. So, but Carolyn did a lot of work, and I don't know, Tyler and whoever else was involved, and so, I interrupted her holiday weekend at least a couple of different times this past weekend, asking to make sure that we got this squared away. So thanks for the heavy lift on this, Carolyn.
We're still working on it, but we'll get better.
And and to be fair, I'm not putting anybody down. It's just, you all of a sudden, bam, snap your fingers, it's go time, and there's no lead into this stuff. So it's trial by error, and that's no fun, and it doesn't make anybody feel good when that happens. So I get that, and I understand it. When there aren't people here in between meetings, it's really difficult to try to iron out the bugs. You're ironing out the bugs through meetings, so I get it.
Well, let's have a Monty Python moment and go to now something completely different. Let's go to item number 8. Board to consider for approval a resolution for the application for state aid for public transit, section 5311, federal transit funding for Valley Senior Services. Brian Arrett, pinch hitting for Paul Grindeland.
Sure. This is the application we submit annually that funds transit throughout the region, the 6 counties that we're in. Concerns about $640,000 in funding, at least that's the amount we're receiving for the current fiscal year, state fiscal year. We have a meeting tomorrow to hear a little bit about what they anticipate might happen with this funding moving forward. We're thinking there's going to be a decrease in state dollars because of the source of those funds, probably an increase in federal funds because of some additional dollars that have been put into various CARES packages. No changes programmatically anticipated right now. So we just need a motion to authorize us to submit this application. And with that, I'll answer any questions anybody might have.
I always enjoyed this each year when Paul would bring this and present it, because he's like, I am here for the big ask, and I got a lot of information for you, because it is what it is. I'm not asking you for, you know, anything that isn't going to take care of itself, but we have to dot our I's and cross our T's. So Barb used to always ask what bad can come of this, and this was one thing that nobody could ever identify anything, and we never have. So unless anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Jeff, pull the board.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs,
Aye.
Commissioner Popacek,
Aye.
Commissioner ROSTAD.
Yes, the motion passes. Item number 9, board to consider for approval an award bid for the 2020 fall winter and 2021 spring summer brochure. Katie McCormick, are you on, Katie?
Katie is not, she has had some little helpers, so I will be taking care of this for her. Again, this is an annual bid that we put out. It is in relation to our brochure that semi-annually we put out. The bids, we had 2 that came in, one from Night Printing and one from Forum Communications. The low bid is Forum Communications at $18,186.90. That fits in our $20,000 budget that we have for the printing costs. We are continuing to work on mailing directly to folks who are part of the programs that we do, not mailing to every household. We are putting 18,000 on racks at Hornbachers right now that people are able to pick up and take home with them. We're still transitioning to produce less paper copies and get more people to use the website. And we are currently in the process of redesigning our website, which again should help anticipate, again, working towards getting folks the information in an easier format online, because that's part of the difficulty right now is the online format is not as user-friendly and people still rely heavily on the paper copy. So any questions?
Do we have what kind of a presentation do we have for the website? Meaning, like Bison Illustrated, for example, they've created this software that makes it, you know, just as easy to read it online as it is to read the paper copy. Do we have some sort of fancy thing? I mean, like it's got a page turner and it gives you the opportunity to zoom in on certain sections and whatever. I'm just thinking about Bison Illustrated because I haven't read it online, but how's the format of our catalog, I guess?
We use a software called.
We have it and I use it.
Okay.
I think it works great.
Yeah, the issue is more if you are using the book and then wanting to register, it is the registration part that is more difficult than actually bringing it up and reading it online.
Okay.
Carolyn, what is the order deadline? And just seeing it's for fall, winter, not knowing, you know, how COVID's going to affect any of our programming. And I don't know if we approve this, sit on it, when do we need to actually pull a trigger on it?
We will be working on the fall, winter, now here, May, June, July, as best as we can, because registration for fall, winter begins August 1st, unless we make some adjustments to that schedule.
Any other questions?
It's just so hard because you don't know, you don't know what regulations are gonna be like come fall. So how do you know what things to, to not plan for and what things to plan for? It's tough.
Yeah, and again, the adjustments will happen in the book itself. We have projected 48 pages, but we have plus 4 pages, plus minus, plus 4 pages, minus 4 pages in our pricing. Obviously, working with the successful bidder, we won't order it until we know that we're going to need it. But we're still going to have to design something because, again, online or in paper, we're still going to need to have something to tell people what we have to offer.
Well, I think to Rusty's point, and we talk about it a lot in my day job, is how is this pandemic going to change our world? And so one of the things in the education side is they literally moved everything to an alternative delivery format. And there's speculation as to what's going to come back. Maybe we need to, in the park district world, is think about what is this pandemic going to do? How is this going to change how we do business, how we communicate? Because even simple things like moving the brochure to all online, it's been like, well, like we've got our traditional audience that wants the print. We still need to accommodate that, but when you get kind of pushed over the cliff because of the pandemic, that traditional worry is gone now because you can't do some of those things that we've done traditionally. Brian's dealing with it in food. How is Valley Senior Services food service going to change because of the the social distancing world that we're now accustomed to? So, I don't know how we can bridge. On one hand, I think we need to keep moving forward with what we've been doing, but we probably also need at the same time to take a serious look at how is this that push over the cliff moment where we don't do anymore, or we do very few public brochures. And I don't have the answer to that, but it's something that we need to be thinking about.
Carolyn, looking at this, and I think I see what's going on here, and it's not presented correctly, that when you look at the base bid for fall, winter, I'm assuming it should be the 8824 move to the top. When you add to it's 93, when you subtract 4, it's 76. And then on the bottom one in the spring, I bet your base number is 9362, and then the 8824 is down to the -4.
Not necessarily, because sometimes because of divisions of 8, which work with their press, that's why you can have an increased cost for less pages.
So you're thinking this is right then?
Yeah, because it came directly from them. And again, we've seen it in the past, and it is specific in the information that because of the web press, which is different than what Knights or Knights would do. Knights have a different press, and that's why it's more expensive. But the web press runs on 8-page groupings versus 4-page.
So that's why Knights would follow that then, exactly? That your base bid's in the middle on both of them, and the plus and minus is, okay.
Correct.
So we just run 4 extra blank pages if need be.
Well, again, it depends on what the budget is and how things are needed to fill and not fill. Because again, we may have more programs, we may have less programs. We need to have some flexibility for the staff.
So if we award this today, what are we obligated to?
At this point, it would just be that we have given them the notice that we would be wanting to do this project with them. But generally, they don't put anything together until we sign the order.
So this budget would be the maximum budget and it could be less or, yeah.
Because we've had the flexibility to add pages if we, or add issues, or have less issues. We may say we want 20,000, but we actually get 15,000, or we get 25,000.
So it's like an RFP.
Mhm.
We have to process, identify our vendor, now we'll work with them for the project.
Correct. And that's the thing, we worked with both of these vendors. Forum has done it more often than not because of the web press.
Questions or a motion?
Well, I think we need to move forward. We don't know if we're, everything's still in limbo, but we need to continue to function. So I think we need to move forward and then it perhaps would be adjusted once things settle down and we know what the new normal is.
So is that a motion, Stacy?
I will make a motion to approve and award Forum Communications printing the 2020 fall winter and 2021 spring summer brochure bid.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Deutsch seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Jeff, pull the board.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs,
Aye.
Commissioner Papacek,
Aye.
Commissioner Rosted.
Yes, motion passes. Item number 10, board to consider for approval and award bid for 2020 playground improvements Bay Beach presenting.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioners, in your packets, you should have the results of a bid that was conducted on March 17th. This is for our annual playground replacements and improvements. This year, we have Stonebridge number 2 Park and Greenfields Park on our list of improvements. Both of those parks will be getting a new 2 to 5 year old playground and a 5 to 12 year old playground. We also have some alternates in here that we would recommend that we consider as well. We had 4 different companies bid with us. Included in your packet is that bid tab showing that Dakota Playground is the low bidder. Also in your packet is a letter from MBN Engineering stating a letter of recommendation that we do accept the bid from Dakota Playground. The amount of that bid collectively is $181,094. This is for the playgrounds that I mentioned and also the alternates. The alternates include the demolition of the existing playground at each spot, as well as zip crews, which is a special type of playground equipment, and also expression swings at each playground. We did have an engineer's estimate for this for a total of $213,055. So this did come in underneath our engineer's estimate. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions you may have.
Dave, would you consider this playground as improvements? So I'm thinking about it in terms of, the budget pandemic that we're faced with. It is, if we were to not, fund this, would we increase our risk and our liability somewhere else because of decrepit playground equipment or anything like that? I'm wondering, if there's a balance somewhere that we, if we held off, for instance, if, we put ourselves at risk somewhere else because we've got decaying equipment.
I think the best answer to that is we did have some discussions on this, several of us, and we chose to try and move ahead with this one. Greenfield Park itself was one that was on the list last year, and we pulled it off. We also, this was before the pandemic hit, we did send out a notification to that neighborhood telling them that we were doing this improvement because there was some backlash last year that they were aware that their playground was on a list to be updated and it didn't. So we told them that it was going to be this year, which was our plan all along. And I'm not just saying we should continue just because of that reason. I think Tyson can speak that, you know, we're still on very good financial footing. I don't think that this expenditure would necessarily increase our risk elsewhere. Both of these playgrounds are at the top of our list for replacements, and you know that list is long. So we definitely could do that. I don't see that we would have an increased liability from not doing this, however.
And commissioners, another thing to keep in mind is in our mill levy, we have 5 mills that we levy for parks and recreation facilities. So we have an obligation. It's about $3 million for this year that we have to spend on improving our facilities, debt for those facilities, or equipment to maintain those facilities. So this would qualify for that. So all the tax money we receive in our general fund can't be used for any purposes. That portion has to be used for parks and rec facilities.
Very good information to have. Thank you, Tyson.
So Dave Beats, just a quick question, and you may or may not know this answer. So this number does not include engineering and what we're spending with MBN, I assume. And do you know roughly what that cost is?
Yeah, for our playgrounds this year, it was roughly around, oh, I want to say it was 7,500, Rusty, without looking it up, but it was right in that neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hey Dave, is there a reason we don't get a bid from Burke?
You know, we entertain any and all bids. You know, if you remember from the last couple of years, we've had as little as 2 bidders bid, which is not ideal. You know, it's certainly better than 1. So I can't talk why Burke didn't bid. And in fact, I believe the playground equipment from Burke might even be with the Safety First. I want to say that is the equipment that they had now that I look at this.
That is their installer, I think.
Correct.
With the bid, submitted the bid.
Further discussion or motion?
Okay, I make a motion to approve and award Pro Playground the playground improvement bid for improvements to Stonebridge number 2 Park and Greenfield Park for the base bid of $159,499 and an alternate bid total of $21,595.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Jeff, call the vote.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs,
Aye.
Commissioner Papacek,
Aye.
Commissioner Rosted.
Yes, the motion passes. All right, item number 11, board to consider for approval and agreement with Upland Dakota to include landscape beds at Legacy Park in the Urban Woods and Prairies program. Dave Beats, you're on again, Dave.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. In your packets is an agreement outlining the responsibilities of both the Park District and Audubon Dakota. What we are proposing is to add this into our Urban Woods and Prairies program that we have been in with Audubon Dakota since 2015, I believe. This is a little different than the other projects we've done with them, where the other projects have basically been large tracts of land that are set aside and planted in the native prairies. This one, we are selecting a more urbanized park. What we'd like to do is if you can see on the map on the screen, the 4 long rectangular type shapes would be pollinator gardens. Then the 2 other shapes would be what we call just upland areas. One of the things we've been trying to do over the course of the last year or so is having discussions of how do we integrate some of you know, the natural prairie that our area is known for into our more urbanized areas. So one of the things we thought about is we could start to do these pocket parks in essence. It reduces our mowing footprint. It also helps attract other animals and insects and pollinators to the area. And then plus it adds a nice, just a landscape feature. So there's a lot of benefits, we believe. So when we did Legacy Park last year, we identified that as an area that, you know what, this would be a good area to test this out in. And we really think it is just that. We think it's going to be a pilot program, and you know, we may even be trying to introduce some of these into our more established parks rather than just this new one. But anyway, we're asking for consideration to go into this agreement. It's a 5-year agreement. It is an out for us, for any party, either Audubon or ourselves, with 30-day written notice. So there is an escape clause there if for some reason, you know, one party or the other doesn't feel that this is working or the right thing. We certainly don't anticipate that. But that's what we're asking for tonight is for your consideration to allow us to do this at Legacy Park. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions you may have.
Dave, this is Dave Bleeker. Just on, can you see the overhead at all?
Yes.
So on the 2 squares on the very northwest corner of the park where it goes out to the cul-de-sac, are those shaded yellow too, or did they not do those 2, the rectangles?
No, those ones right at the entrance, we thought we would just leave and put into the traditional perennial landscape beds. The ones that we identified, we wanted them to be close together, and we felt that those just work better for how the pollinators work. And I'm not an expert in that area, but I'm told that, you know, if you have a bigger area is ideal. So we wanted to find that these little areas close enough together could kind of give us that same impact that if it were one area.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? I think this looks like a great idea. We talked about facilities, and it's just a different way to enhance one of our parks with a different amenity.
I'll move to approve the agreement with Dakota Audubon as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jeff, call the vote, please.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs, Commissioner Papacek,
Aye.
Commissioner ROSTAD.
Yes, the motion passes. Item 12, board to consider for approval an award bid for depot chiller replacement. Dave Beats.
Thank you, commissioners. This one was a late addition to the list, and the reason we're bringing it ahead here is to hopefully get approval and get this work completed before it gets hot. I know it's hard to think that we'll have summer, but we know it's coming. We did have a public bid and open bids on April 7th for the replacement of our chiller or air conditioner unit here at the depot. Last year it started to fail on us. We did limp it through to the end of the season last year. We were told that it is no longer able to get parts for this particular unit. It is not easily fixed, and if at all, is what the contractors have told us. So we did enter into a bid process. We had a very good number of bids. I was very pleased with that. At the end of that process, Grants Mechanical was the low bidder at $55,350. So that's what we're recommending, that we would consider awarding this bid in that amount to Grants Mechanical. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions you may have.
Just a comment that that's the expectation, Dave, moving forward, to have 7 people bid every project.
I would love it if we could get that sort of participation.
I know sometimes 3 and 4 is tough, but 7 is nice.
Any discussion or motion? This one looks pretty straightforward.
I'll make a motion to approve the chiller as presented.
And a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the vote, Jeff.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs,
Aye.
Commissioner Papacek,
Aye.
Commissioner ROSTAD.
Yes, the motion passes. Item 13, the final one, board to review and consider for approval authorization for Dave Leaker to sign easements. I think this is just the extension of when we had our special meeting, is that, or is this different?
No, this is something different. This is basically just kind of a housekeeping item, commissioners. In the past, since I've been here, the commissioners have gave the authority to the executive director, and that was with Roger Gress previously, and then Joel Vettel to sign utility easements, just for a course of expediency. We get numerous requests throughout the year of easements for utilities. They could be fiber optic, cable, electrical, water, sewer, everything you can imagine through our park property. And basically just, we follow a form that our attorneys have put together for us. Our director team and park maintenance team, looks at it, make sure it's not gonna affect us poorly. And then we typically just grant the easements. We do have an administration fee associated with that. There's an above ground cabinet fee associated with it. And then depending on what type of, how they'll be installing the utility, it could be directionally bored or trenched, well, it depends on what kind of security deposit we have. So this just allows the executive director to sign those easements versus bringing everything to the commissioners for approval.
Okay. Any discussion or motion?
So we're moving to approve the resolution as presented, is that?
Example motion right there.
Oh. I make a motion to approve a resolution to authorize Dave Leaker to sign utility easements as presented.
I second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Jeff, one more time, please.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs,
Aye.
Commissioner Papacek,
Aye.
Commissioner Rosted.
Yes, the motion passes. Any final business or we motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.